Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again I'm coming to you with another range report. And in today's range report, we're going to be shooting and reviewing another fine Swiss-made firearm from one of my favorite firearms companies, B&T. And the gun that we will be taking a look at today is an integrally suppressed SBR, and the model is the B&T SPC9 SD G. So obviously made by B&T, it's part of the SPC line, chambered in 9mm. The SD means this is integrally suppressed. Even though it looks like we have a suppressor that's just on the end of the barrel, the suppressor actually goes underneath the handguard, and there are vents in the barrel which will slow the projectile down to subsonic velocities. And as I said, all of that is under the handguard. And the G means we have a Glock style lower. So I know a lot of people will ask, does it take Glock mags? Well, in this case, it does. And we're going to talk more about this later in the range report. Now, the SPC is a firearm that often is compared with the B&T APC series. Now, the APC, I think, is their top of the line. It's kind of their flagship model. And when they came out with this one, it also takes the same lower as the APC. It has a few different features and aesthetic differences. And often I'm asked, what do you think about the two? Which one is better? And hopefully we're going to figure that out in this range report. I'm also going to film a side-by-side video as well with an APC SD. Now, some of the differences between this gun and the APC is that it shares more AR-15 style controls. We have a charging handle here on the back. We still have the charging handle on the side like an MP5 or other B&Ts, but the addition of the charging handle, a more rounded receiver, it kind of looks a little bit more like an AR-15, and we also have a buffer tube because the bolt is shaped a little bit different. So I think this is a firearm that B&T tried to make more for the American market and people that like AR-9s, or essentially AR-15s chambered in 9mm. But is that really the case, and is it any better than the APC? Well, let's talk about it and let's find out. But before we get this to the range and talk about all the things that I like and don't like and find out how it shoots, as always, I want to thank the people that make these videos possible. First and foremost is the owner of this really cool SBR. He's a local fan and subscriber. His name is Jack. In fact, he's the second person named Jack that lends guns to the channel, and I do appreciate all of his time in making this video happen, because this is an NFA item and logistically it's a little bit harder than a standard Title I firearm. So thank you so much, Jack. As always, I want to thank my Patreon supporters, because through their monthly donations and support they help keep the lights on around here, and I could not do this without them. And if you want to join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month and see all of these videos early, there's a link in the description below. And as always, I want to thank my primary sponsor who provides all of the ammunition for these range reports and makes them financially feasible for me, my good friend Mark from Brownworks. And here we are once again reviewing another high-end fine firearm. And I know if you're a fan of the Texas Gun Vault and all of the firearms that I get to shoot here, you have a great taste in guns, and you probably have a wonderful collection of your own. You probably have a Colt 1911, a Browning High Power, a CZ75, or a Beretta 92, just to name a few. And you're probably in the market for a set of fine, customized wood panel grips to make your guns unique and one of a kind. Well, I have the perfect grip company for you. Brownworks. Brownworks is a custom grip company making a wide variety of grips for a wide variety of firearms out of a wide variety of exotic woods and materials. Mark is an artist, he's a craftsman, he's always putting on new and innovative features to these grips. He can apply custom logos, custom textures, custom engravings. He can finish these grips in a wide variety of colors. He can apply exotic materials like snakeskin and alligator skin, and he can even create his own laminate woods. Anything you can imagine he can create and make. Every set of grips is made to order. So I'm going to put a link to his website in the comment section below, as well as a coupon code for 10% off your first order. I'm going to ask you to go over there and see everything he has to offer. And when you place that order for your first set of custom grips, please tell Mark the Texas Gun Vault sent you. All right, so let's talk about the gun we have on the workbench today, the B&T SPC9 SD G. So this is a pistol caliber carbine made by B&T, chambered in 9mm. Yes, it does take Glock mags. This version has a telescoping stock, and because we have this buffer tube back here, I don't think there's any options for a folding stock. This is a registered SBR, so it is a short-barreled rifle. It is integrally suppressed, so even though the suppressor looks like it's screwed onto the end of the barrel out here, it's actually kind of oddly shaped. The suppressor comes all the way up here to the receiver, goes over the barrel, which is ported or vented, and that slows down the projectiles, making this gun even quieter because the projectiles come out of the suppressor at subsonic velocities. This is obviously a gun that is designed for special forces and SWAT teams, but in this configuration it is semi-automatic only, and it is civilian legal. I know some people always ask that when I review these guns like this. So before we get this to the range and find out how it shoots and see how accurate it is, and also talk about how it compares to an APC, I always want to talk about the things that I like and don't like. And I always want to start with the positive first. And the first thing I love about this gun is that it is a B&T. You guys know I'm a huge B&T fan. And if you ever hold a B&T, you can just tell these are high quality guns. Everything from the fit and the finish to how the aluminum receiver's made up with the polymer lowers, the way the bolts are made, everything about these guns just screams quality. They are just so well engineered. And B&T is not the biggest company in the world, but honestly, I think they're one of the highest quality companies out there. They definitely take pride in every firearm that leaves their factory. Another thing I love about this gun is that it is a 9mm PCC, or pistol caliber carbine. The types of guns I've always been interested in are submachine guns and civilian versions of those pistol caliber carbines, essentially something that can be shouldered but chambered in 9mm. There's just something about these types of guns that are fun to shoot. I'm always fascinated by how some use direct blowback, some are roller delayed, some use rotating bolts. I just love the mechanics of guns and learning about them and how different companies build these. And this is exactly the type of gun that I absolutely love. The next thing I love about this gun is that telescoping stock I mentioned earlier. When it comes to a submachine gun or PCC, I think telescoping stocks just have that right look. They're very industrial. They're very minimalistic, and I love that, whether it's on an APC, an MP5, or here on the SPC. I really like the manual of arms of this gun, and as I mentioned, I think they designed this gun more for the American market because we have the same controls you have on the APC, but they've added a charging handle here in the back, and I think that is something for American shooters. Also having the addition of this buffer tube, which has nothing to do with the manual of arms, is very reminiscent of an AR-15. And aesthetically, you can kind of see the upper receiver is a little bit more rounded. The handguard looks a little bit more like an AR-15. And I think this is just kind of designed for people that like AR-9s, but might be looking at a Swiss-made firearm and think the APC might be a little bit too blocky. Now, one of the other things I love about B&Ts is the trigger. I think they're really good out of the box, and they're good duty triggers. They're not target triggers, but overall, I think they're perfect for what these guns are intended to be used for. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust the camera, get out the Lyman trigger pull weight gauge, and I'm going to show you what this trigger is all about. So let's take a look at this B&T trigger and see how nice or bad it is, depending on your opinion. Of course, we will start by dropping the magazine, ensuring there is no ammunition in it, and then we will safety check the gun, ensure there is no ammunition in the chamber, and it looks like we are good. So let's start off by looking at the trigger pull. Here we have the standard B&T trigger. It's a little bit curved, which I do like. There's our take up. It is very light and smooth. We come back to a very definitive wall, And I think that is a good duty trigger. If I had to guess, I would say 5 to 6 pounds, somewhere in that area. Let's go ahead and check the reset. Little bit long, little bit clanky, but you're right back at that wall once it does reset, and that reset is tactile and audible. So overall, I think a good trigger for a PCC right out of the box. So let's go ahead and get out the lineman trigger pull weight gauge. Let's clear the averages, and let's see how heavy this trigger actually is. So for our first pull, 5 pounds, 11.1 ounces. Six pounds, 2.5 ounces. Five pounds, 9.9 ounces. Five pounds, 10.6 ounces. And finally, we have 5 pounds, 10.3 ounces, which gives us an average of 5 pounds, 12.1 ounces. So yeah, between 5 and 6 pounds. And I personally think that is a very good trigger pull for a gun like this, a PCC that might not be a target or competition gun, but rather a duty gun. That's right in that sweet spot for me. So overall, I think this is a pretty darn good trigger. But before we go to the range, I want to talk about two things about this gun that I don't like. And I've already alluded to both of these things. The first thing is this buffer tube here in the back. And this has to be here because of the shape of the bolt and the hydraulic buffer that is on the bolt. It has to travel further back into the receiver. Now, for some reason, they have added this, which is not on the APC. And because it's not on the APC, you're able to have more stock options. So why they designed this differently, I'm not 100% sure. It kind of gets in the way. It doesn't affect the function of the gun, and actually it's kind of nice because you can rest your cheek on it when you're using the telescoping stock. However, this is going to limit your stock options, and B&T has a lot of really nice stocks for their guns, including the MBT, which is a folding stock. So I think this is going to limit your stock or pistol brace options. The next thing about this gun I don't like is the fact it takes Glock mags. Now I know you can change out this lower receiver to take B&T mags, and that's something that I would personally do. Now the APC that I recently reviewed that was also integrally suppressed used B&T mags, and I don't like Glock mags in my PCCs for a number of reasons. The first thing is the angle. You'll notice that this magazine has an angle to it because it is designed to be put into a pistol grip. However, when it's outside the pistol grip and inserted into a gun, it's not directly down, and I find this slows me down when it comes to changing the magazines out because I'm so used to shooting AR9s with Colt style mags or Uzi mags, which go straight into the receiver, not at an angle. Glock mags are also single feed magazines. These are designed for semi-automatic pistols and not submachine guns or PCCs. A real submachine gun mag like an MP5, an MPX, and the like is going to have a double feed magazine, meaning every time the bolt will pick up a round from the left, and then the right, and then the left, and the right, back and forth. They're just more efficient magazines for these types of guns. And I personally think people that want these guns to take Glock mags are either lazy or cheap because they just have these on hand. I don't think they actually enhance the gun in any way. And I think B&T did a great job when it comes to the design of their own magazines. And I know some people are going to say, well, they're all polymer and they're going to crack. I have never had that happen. I have always found them to work great, and I like the way that they go directly into the receiver at a right angle and not slanted. They're just easier to use, and I don't mind having to have separate magazines for my PCC. But I know this is going to be a personal preference. Some people are going to love this and some people are not. But that's why I'm not a big fan of the Glock mag lowers for these B&Ts. So that's my thoughts on this gun. So let's get it to the range and let's see how it shoots. So as always, we'll start off at 10 yards. I'm going to put one magazine through this and just see, is this gun accurate, what the recoil is like, and see if there's anything about this gun that I like or don't like, and I'll report back to you. So let's get to the range. And as you can see, this gun is amazingly accurate. I am very, very impressed with that. But honestly, that's pretty much the way every B&T shoots for me. It just has to go back to that Swiss machining and that Swiss quality. It's just a very accurate gun, and as I always like to say with these, you really can't miss. I was really surprised by that group because there were a few I thought I actually pulled. But nope, they were pretty much going through exactly the same hole, one after another. Now let's talk about the shootability of this gun. This gun has exceptionally low recoil, just like the GHM and the APC, and that's because this utilizes a hydraulic buffer system. It is a direct blowback gun, but the hydraulic buffer softens the recoil. Now a 9mm PCC typically is going to be low recoil anyway, but if you've ever shot an AR-15 9mm, they can have a little bit more of an impact into your shoulder. They actually feel more like a 5.56, but this is very, very soft. Not quite as soft as an HK MP5, but it's almost there. Now let's talk about the tone of this suppressor. After all, this is integrally suppressed, and people are going to want to know, how does the suppressor perform? Well, I was using 115 grain ammunition, which is typically supersonic, but I did not hear the supersonic crack of any of these projectiles, so it's definitely slowing that projectile down. Now, the tone of this suppressor seems to be more in the mid-range. What's more important than the decibel reduction of a suppressor is the tone of the suppressor. When I shot the APC9 SD, it had a very low tone, which I liked. This one is a little bit higher pitched, in the mid-register, and I think it has to do with the shape of the suppressor. It's still pretty nice as compared to many other 9mm suppressors out there, but I don't think it's as nice as the one on the APC. And when I make the comparison video, hopefully I'll be able to show those differences. But so far, this thing is running great. All right, so let's double the distance on this target. I'm going to go for the head on this silhouette. Hopefully this accuracy is going to continue. And once again, see if there's anything else about this gun that I discover that I want to talk about, and I'll report back to you. So let's go back to the range. And pretty much I have the same comments that I had before. Very accurate and very fun to shoot. But now when it comes to the suppressor, I'm starting to notice the back pressure a little bit more. As I mentioned, I recently reviewed the APC9 SD, and it was very well gassed. Even though these are direct blowback, you're always going to get gas coming back into your face a little bit. This one seems to be a little bit more than the APC. It also seems to be running a little bit more dirty. In fact, as this range report goes on, you're going to start to see a little smudge on the side of my face in the range footage that I didn't even know was there because the gun is just blowing back so much carbon. It's a very, very dirty gun, but that's to be expected when it comes to an integrally suppressed gun. But this one seems to be a little bit dirtier than the others. All right, so the next test I want to do is the bench rest test. So far, this gun has been exceptionally accurate. So at 25 yards, I want to see what the best group I can get with it is. And I'm going to take as much of the human element out of the equation. So let's go back to the range, 25 yards, shooting this from a barrier or a bench, and let's see what the best group I can get is. And I know some people always criticize my range report, saying 25 yards isn't far enough for a gun like that. And sometimes, depending on the gun I'm reviewing, maybe they have a point. But this is a sub gun designed for SWAT teams, for CQB, and I think 25 yards is more than adequate. So far, the accuracy of this gun is really good. This is very nice, practical self-defense accuracy. No issues with it whatsoever. And as I mentioned, I don't seem like I can really miss with this thing. It is very easy to aim, even though the barrel in this is very, very short. The barrel really is only a couple of inches because most of this out here is that suppressor. Now, when it comes to the trigger, it is pretty darn good. I would not call it a target trigger as I showed earlier in this range report when I had the Lyman trigger pull weight gauge out. But for a practical gun, for a defensive gun, it's perfect. But this might not be a competition gun if you're somebody that likes to run PCCs in competition. You might want to go in a different direction if you have to run the guns completely stock. All right, so the next test I'm going to do is the hollow point test. If you've been following my channel for any length of time, you know when it comes to my GHM9 Generation 1, I had some issues running hollow points. Now, normally at the range, I show you what ammunition I'm running through this, but I forgot to do it and I didn't get that footage. So I brought it out here to the garage. For this next test, I'm going to be running MagTech 9mm 115 grain jacketed hollow point. So this is the ammunition in the next footage. So hopefully I'm not going to have any issues because this gun I think is designed for self-defense. So let's go back to the range and make sure it runs hollow points. And just like every B&T that I review, with the exception of my GHM9, this thing is running flawlessly. No failures to feed, failures to eject, failures to fire. It just simply runs like a top, whether I'm using ball ammunition or hollow points. All right, so the next test I want to do is the shoot fast and magazine change test. Now, I've talked about how much I don't like these Glock mags because of the angle. So sometimes these can be a little bit tricky for me to find the mag well and reinsert it, because my natural inclination is to come at it at more of a straight angle or a right angle versus the crooked one for a pistol mag. I just don't like that. I've always felt like it slows me down and it's not as natural. So let's go back to the range, see if I can pull this trigger quickly and how fast I can change this magazine out. So when it comes to shooting this gun fast, I have a hard time getting a consistent rhythm with it. I think it has to do with the longer than expected reset. When I'm trying to shoot this fast, I'm noticing that reset is a little bit further than I may want, but I can definitely shoot this fast in very short bursts. Now, when it comes to the magazine change, I actually did it pretty darn quick, but it still feels a little bit awkward. If I had a Glock lower on any of my B&Ts, I would just have to train with that and get used to it. But personally, I still like the B&T mag lowers. All right, so the next test I want to do really isn't a test. It's just me wanting to have some fun with it. So I'm going to load up one of these mags to capacity and just do a quick mag dump. Hopefully, I'll be able to get a better rhythm with this gun now that I know what to expect. So let's go back to the range and do a mag dump. So like before, I was not able to get the most consistent trigger pull, but I can pull it pretty darn fast. The gun is very smooth shooting and very easy to keep on target because the recoil is so light with that hydraulic buffer system. I can only imagine how much fun this gun must be in full auto. So what are my final thoughts on the B&T SPC9 SD G? Well, this is definitely another great gun from B&T. Pretty much every firearm they make shoots the same. They're accurate and well built. I really feel that if you're an AR-15 shooter and like the manual of arms and looks of those guns more than, let's say, an MP5, I think the SPC is going to be a great gun for you. But if you prefer more of a traditional submachine gun look and manual of arms, the APC might be the better gun for you. But I'll have to talk more about that in a future comparison video. But overall, this is a lot of fun to shoot. It's very accurate, low recoil. I had no issues with it whatsoever. Now, when it comes to my personal preferences, I think I like the APC just a little bit more than this gun. That one seems to shoot a little bit better, and in the SD configuration with the suppressor, I think the pitch of the APC is a little bit lower and sounds softer to your ear. And a lot of that has to do with the shape of this suppressor, but I'll have to talk more about that in a future video. So on my star system, how would I rate the B&T SPC9 SD G? Well, it's going to get almost a perfect review. 4.75 stars out of 5. Now, I would give this a 5-star review if it had the B&T mag lower, just because I find that to be a little bit better ergonomically, and when it comes to the mag change, I can do those a little bit quicker. But I know that can be changed out, but remember, my star rating is always based on how the gun is as it sits here on the workbench. So I got it with a Glock mag lower, not a B&T mag lower. So these are just my personal thoughts and opinions. You are free to disagree. So what do you think? Have you ever shot an SPC9? What do you think of integrally suppressed firearms? Do you like them or do you hate them because they run so dirty? And are you like me and do you love B&T? Tell me in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching.